Welcome to the Health and Wealth Podcast. This is a show dedicated to the pursuit of health and wealth without losing your health to attain that wealth. With this podcast, we're going to share stories and best practices of successful business owners who either sell health or have health as part of their business plan. You're going to get great marketing and strategic advice from proven, successful experts. We will also be sharing stories from successful entrepreneurs who lost their health on the road to wealth, what they learned, and how they do things differently now, both in business and in life. Let's welcome your host, businesswoman, personal trainer, and podcast queen, JJ Flazanes.
Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm JJ Flazanes, your host and producer. Thank you for downloading today's episode. Today, we're going to talk about breath work for healing and stress relief. I thought this was an appropriate time of year to do this, considering it's the holidays, 2020, not to mention the crazy state of the world, and we all could use a little more stress relief. So if you're getting the show in real time, use this week with your family, with gatherings that you go to, with being out among people in grocery stores, or wherever you start to feel anxious or worried or tense. I would definitely invite you to do this. We're going to go through a practice later on in the episode that you can use anywhere. It's free and you can use it today. I will remind you there are 2 spaces left in the Inner Circle Mastermind, and there are a few spaces more left in the Emerging Business Builders Mastermind. If you are ready to take 2021 to a brand new place and you know you need the community support and most importantly, accountability to make that happen, please go to jjsinnercirclemastermind.com and fill out an application, and let's get on a quick call. It is free to apply, and there is no cost to apply, and we'll just see if it's a fit, either one of the groups for you. That way we can get you on board to have a successful 2021. So today's guest, AJ, is the host and founder of the podcast My 7 Chakras, which has received over 4 million downloads in over 150 countries. After completing an MBA at the University of British Columbia, he realized that he didn't want to take the traditional route, but instead embark on an entrepreneurial journey based on kindness, ancient wisdom, healing, and spirituality. Over the years, he has accumulated skills and experiences in energy healing, meditation, breathwork, and other practices that have transformed his life and the lives that he's come in contact with. He's a certified SOMA breathwork instructor, and he loves using ancient yogic breathing practices with rhythmical, euphoric music and scientific research to help people calm their mind, heal their chakras, relax their nervous system, and experience deep states of bliss. Welcome to the show, AJ.
Hi, JJ. Thanks for having me.
I want to talk about breath work with you. But before we get to the breath work conversation, what's really fun about our relationship that has just started is that it didn't just start. You and I sort of met each other through a podcasting group back in 2014. Yeah, I think it was 2014. We both launched our shows, and I remember seeing you out there, and you saw me. And in the recent past, I've been saying to myself, God, I'd love to find someone who we can kind of do a show exchange and take our audiences and like build them through each other of like-minded people. And I honestly manifested you because I had reached out to somebody else and it didn't work out. And I kind of just gave up on the idea because I thought, well, maybe it's just not meant to be right now. And then you contacted me and I thought, look at that. I just manifested exactly what I was looking for. And it was so fun to know that it was you and that we kind of had met previously in this podcasting group. So everybody, I want you to know AJ's show. And AJ, I want you to tell us sort of your podcasting journey. Why did you start your show? What is your show? And what is the goal of your show? And, the background that you have to support the information.
Oh, absolutely. Firstly, thanks a lot for having me on your show. And likewise, we started pretty much at the same time. And what I like is we're not just podcasters, but we were in the health space, so to speak. And your show and, especially the logo of your show was so familiar. And I kept, coming across it again and again. And I think the seed was placed somewhere in 2014. And I wanted to, work with you or interview you or have you on my show. And it seems like I did manifest you as well. So it was both ways. But My show is called My Seven Chakras, and seven is a word. Started towards the end of 2014, and the podcast is about ancient wisdom for the modern mind. And my goal is to have conversations about these ancient practices like yoga, meditation, mindfulness, breath work, spirituality, and really help people firstly calm their minds, relax their nervous system, and then experience deep states of bliss. Because as you would agree, what we're all looking for is the feeling, and feeling is a secret. And once we feel different, so many things open up for us. And I am really in this space to help people feel different by taking control of their health, but then also accessing so much more abundance in every area of their lives. So that's what my show is about. It's called My Seven Chakras, but we don't only address the chakras. And the reason why I called it My Seven Chakras is I want every listener to look in the mirror and say My Seven Chakras, because it's a journey of going from the root chakra, which is all about survival, and then transcending the need to just survive by going to the crown chakra and aligning with your mission, your purpose, your vision for your life, and then actualizing it. And that's a journey that we all go through, right? So that's the idea behind My Seven Chakras.
Okay, I love that you just said transcending the need to survive, and that visual of going from the root chakra up the chain of chakras, right, into sort of that higher consciousness place of thriving and not just surviving, and owning that, and utilizing that, embodying that, and the deep state of bliss that we all can live from, that most people don't have any experience with. And I know that when you and I were discussing what to share on each other's shows, right, one of the topics that you talk about is breath work. And, you know, I have an acting background. I've learned different kinds of breathing techniques for singing. I've done meditation for many years in different forms. I've learned different types of meditation and different types of yoga, incorporate different types of breathing, right? There's so many. And so when I heard the like breath work, not from you, but from someone else, I just sort of poo-pooed it. I went, breath work. Like, come on, like really breath. And I don't believe it, but okay, here's another iteration of the fact that we all need to slow the hell down and learn how to just focus on our breath, which is, you know, for a lot of people, they have an experience in yoga and they think this is amazing. It's life-changing. And I'm like, it's not life-changing. You just slowed down. And it, you know, the exercise of yoga, so to speak, someone who loses weight because they go to yoga, yet what they don't realize is it's not the exercise of yoga. It's the parasympathetic nervous system, you know, state that allows our body to heal and release, you know, serotonin, and to reduce inflammation, and to recharge their adrenals. And so all of a sudden we've associated slowing down in a yoga class and concentrating on my breathing with this amazing trick or tool to get somewhere different. And so I think that the breath work you're talking about, I want you to explain how, when you started it yourself, when you learned about it, how you use it, and then how we can use it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when you think about yoga, what a lot of people think about is moving and flowing with the body, right? Which is the asana part of it, which is the most popular version. I had an epiphany when I really went into the path of yoga that is prescribed by the ancient seers and the elders. And they did a lot of research, you know, in their mind, and understanding how can an individual really go to a point of self-realization, which is the understanding that we're not these individual beings, but we're connected in some way to the universe. We are one. We're not separate. So if that is a goal of transcendence, how do you get there, right? And so they gave 8 steps. The first 2 steps is all about understanding the do's and don'ts about life, the rules about life, right? And the foundations. The third step was yoga asana, which is understanding how to use your body, how to move your body, and all these different poses that we do in the yoga studio. The next step after that is called pranayama, which is mastering your breath, understanding how you can use your breath to have certain outcomes, whether that is reducing stress, alleviating anxiety, having these beautiful spiritual awakening experiences, and all of that can be achieved through the breath. Now, a lot of people, when they get onto this path to reduce stress, they jump straight to meditation, which is trying to control the mind. But as you might admit, controlling the mind is very difficult, especially for beginners, because guess what? We have 50 to 60,000 thoughts that we have on a daily basis. And it's like, going straight to grade 7 before going to grade 2 and grade 3. Because in this path of yoga, meditation comes at level 6 or level 7, because that's when you've mastered your body, you've mastered your breath, you've mastered your senses, and then you're able to master your thoughts. And so for me, it is going step by step and saying, hey, if meditation comes to you, that's great. And a lot of people can meditate immediately, but some people find it hard to just sit in silence and contemplate. And for them, it's good to start mastering their breath, because the beauty is that when you master your breath, you can control your thoughts, you can control your emotions, and so many different physiological effects that take place inside the body just when you're breathing correctly.
So this was a study that you had been doing for yourself to start, right?
That is correct.
And then you brought it to the show because of the results and experiences that you were having, or were you teaching other people first? How did the idea to share this on a bigger level come to you?
Well, because I had this epiphany that, initially when I started the show and I was sharing a lot of things, the way I entered into spirituality was through the chakras, because I was in a job which I didn't like. I was in retail, and I think you were also in retail at some point. But it was odd hours. I was standing all day, coming at home really late, eating at odd hours as well. And all of that was taking a toll on my body and my mind. And also I was in a team that wasn't really supportive, a little bit of a toxic environment, you could say that. But that was affecting my health, and I was looking for ways to heal, to feel better. And so I tried meditation, but it didn't come naturally to me. So I went online on YouTube and I came across a chakra visualization technique. And so I lay down on my bed, visualized these different colored balls. And for some reason, just through that visualization, I experienced an energetic shift. And that was sort of an epiphany for me, that there's so much more out there when it comes to energy. And that sort of made me start my podcast, because I wanted to reach out to people who've spent decades talking in terms of chakras and energy medicine and things like that. But then somewhere down the line, as I went deeper into yoga, I realized that when I was sharing these things, some people were able to, get that sensitivity, that subtle energy sensitivity. They were able to see colors. They were able to feel that energy between their hands. And that was happening naturally. Whereas some people were finding it even harder. And the epiphany for me was, hey, you know what? You don't have to start from there. Let's start, way before. Let's start with learning how to breathe, because that's sort of like a gateway experience towards spirituality, if that makes sense. And then what happened for me was, I realized, because life has a way of coming back whole circle, right? I realized through my conversations with my own mom that from month 3 after I was born, I had wheezing. I had all kinds of respiratory issues. And because it was so traumatic, I ended up forgetting a large part of those childhood memories. Because as far as I recall, I used to have these panic attacks, and that could be triggered because of pollen, because of some pollution, or just because of some emotion. But then I would be in a state of breathlessness, and I would make these weird wheezing sounds. And the doctors would give me prescriptions and drugs and those inhalers that I was so used to. And that was really hard for me, because even my mind wanted to forget it, because of which I don't remember a large portion of those memories. And I still remember there was this one doctor who sort of sat me down and said, breathe deeply, slowly, and consciously. And that was one of the seeds that sort of allowed me to come out of wheezing. And thank God I don't have wheezing these days. And I'm fortunate that these days I get to share and teach people how to breathe correctly, because just that small correction can make a person feel much more at ease. So I hope that makes sense.
It does. It leads me to a couple questions about that situation. So, in Chinese medicine, the lungs represent where we hold grief. And I'm wondering if you had an experience early on that had grief in your body.
Right. That's so interesting. And as I have this conversation with my mom, and part of it is I'm going to bring my mom on my show as a guest. and really talking about the first 4 or 5 years of my life. But one of the things I discovered is, as children, the way we relate to grief is different compared to adults, right? So my mom told me when I was born, my dad wasn't by my side. My dad was abroad because he was getting his sister married. He was in the US and I was in India. I don't know, that might have played a role, right? Because if you're born in an ideal situation, you would want your mom and your dad, right? Both the yin and the yang. And in my case, maybe my dad wasn't there. And those days, there was no social media, right? So I couldn't even see a live stream of him from abroad. So maybe that was a sense of emptiness that was having that might have gotten stuck in my lungs, because when you are born, the first thing you do is, you breathe and all the oxygen gets into your blood. And that's how the oxygen level in your blood increases compared to when you're in the fetus. But maybe that was one of the emotional blockages that I still need to process.
Well, it's just an interesting thing to ask, because it also sounds like you've healed that in many ways. And it sounds like it's come out of breath work. And it also makes me want to ask you, if you're willing to share, what your astrological sun sign is. Do you know?
My astrological sun sign, Gemini.
Okay. I knew it. I know I had it in my mind and I was like, I don't know why I didn't just say it. But okay. So Gemini is an air sign. Do you know anything else about your chart?
So Gemini, June 8th, born.
Your moon sign. Do you know what your moon sign is? Gemini is your sun sign. Do you know what your moon sign is? It's okay if you don't.
No, I don't.
Okay. All right. A moon's how you deal with emotions. But as a Gemini, as an air sign, I wonder again, air, breathing, right? What the connection is there with that, how things get processed, how things are sort of rolling around in your head, in your mind, the ability to, I don't know if your mom or your dad had any level, and you don't have to answer this, any level of sort of anxiety or fear, or dealt with a lot of trauma and fear, maybe in the move that you guys did, right? Sometimes it's passed down through epigenetics and, inherited emotional DNA. So sometimes it's not even yours. But regardless of whether it was yours or not, this moral of this story is that it sounds like you've cleared it and you've healed it or moved through it using breath work.
Yeah. I mean, I think healing is the journey, right? I mean, I don't think I'll ever get to a place where I've healed everything, but I'm definitely processing it. One thing good about my childhood was that growing up, I was always in an environment that was made of love. I had a very liberal sort of childhood in terms of my parents and their outlook towards life and spirituality. So my dad is a Hindu, my mom is a Christian. So growing up, I went both to the temple as well as to the church. And so that in a way made me more open-minded and wanted to ask questions in terms of how the universe works and operates and all these deities and spirituality. I think that's where the seed was laid, because otherwise, if I was born into a more closed-minded home, that would limit my wanting to, pursue this journey of spirituality, but also understanding our own body. So I think that also helped some of the challenges that I was going through, even though I was having these bouts of wheezing and difficulty breathing. Just the environment that my mom and dad provided me allowed me to heal step by step, day by day.
But you didn't do any drugs or surgery or any intervention, so to speak, that really took you from whatever state you were in to, let's say, not having that anymore. Like, it was this incorporation of what the doctor said about breathing, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So just that point right there, I had these bouts of wheezing. It would happen all the time. And all I did was learn to breathe. So this is going to link the reason why this show is important for everyone to pay attention to, because while I was poo-pooing and discounting it before, not again, in an oversimplification, because sometimes when I learn something or have learned something there for a long time in my life, I just assumed that if I learned it, everybody already knew it.
Right.
And of course I had to learn that was the exact opposite. And so I can't assume anyone knows any of the things that I know or believe. And so therefore can't make them responsible for not knowing it and then not doing it, because I would just think, well, of course everybody knows this. Of course you know that you chose your parents and that you incarnated in this lifetime to learn a bunch of lessons, and that you're here and we come in and we come out and we come in and we come out. Of course you know that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So for you and for everybody listening, and for me to take, again, a full, if you will, if it's a 180, I guess I'm doing a 180 in a way. I believe in breath work. It's not that I don't, but making it a point to do it as a specific technique is something I have never done in a formalized way. It happened through yoga or meditation or breath work with singing and controlling your sound and your focal point for singing, or anything else, acting, whatever. But I love that this is the reason why, when we talked about doing the show, I'm interested in it, but now I'm even more interested in it because basically you've just shown people the power, the healing power of breath work for something where doctors said you have an issue, and then just breathe, not just breathe, but yes, there are practices, breathe deeply, breathe slowly, like take life in. And life is about the breath. I mean, without breath, there is no life. And I think people like me at times, until you're ready to hear it, it can just be something that people go, yeah, I breathe, like whatever. Like, why do I got to get into a room and breathe with people? Like, I don't understand. And I think there's resistance to that. I didn't have resistance. It wasn't the right time. And it's obviously divine timing that we're having this conversation, because you were supposed to be the right person to bring this work to me and to my community. So let's dive in a little bit into taking this practice from breathing deeply, breathing slowly, breathing fully, and helping to heal your lungs, to what you're doing now, which is hosting a regular practice for people doing breath work.
And so do you want me to talk about the why behind why we breathe and what are the benefits?
Sure. Let's break that down and go through, the benefits of the breath work besides healing and what that means. Like, how do we heal? Because we know there are many layers and levels to what breath work helps us to do, like get into different states that help our bodies to heal. And let's talk about oxygen and the nervous system and stress. And then after we go through the why and the what of it, then let's talk about the how.
Sure. So, I mean, something as simple as, let's talk about something that all your listeners maybe want, is more energy, right? A lot of times, maybe we have good energy in the morning, but as soon as we reach 3:30, we feel a bit down. We feel fatigued or low on energy. And to really understand how we can optimize our energy, we could take a look at how energy production is related to breathing. And so going back to the process, what happens is, in the cellular mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of our body, oxygen has to mix with glucose in order to create ATP, energy, and carbon dioxide, which is released out, and water vapor, right? But just because we breathe in the oxygen, it does not mean that the oxygen actually reaches our cellular mitochondria. And why is that not happening? Well, when we breathe in, the oxygen goes through our nose, down our throat, into the lungs, and then it enters the bloodstream. But when that oxygen enters there's something called the Bohr's effect, because of which the oxygen actually binds with the hemoglobin, right? So in order for the oxygen to reach the cellular mitochondria, it has to unbind and it has to go into the cells for energy production. Well, how does that happen? In order for that to happen, the carbon dioxide level has to increase in the bloodstream for a short period of time, thereby leading to the unbinding of the oxygen from the hemoglobin and reaching the mitochondria. So how do we do that? Well, by breathing out slowly and by not letting out all the carbon dioxide at once, we're giving our body an opportunity for the CO2 levels to build up, thereby enabling the oxygen to reach the mitochondria and really optimize energy production. Right? So that is one way in which, just by breathing out slowly and extending our exhales, you feel such a surge of energy even after 2 minutes that you'll notice, wow, this breath work is something. So that's one way. One of the benefits of breath work is that you get more energy. Now, the other benefit of breath work is that you are actually becoming more resilient. You're building more endurance, and you are building more you're becoming stronger mentally and physically as well. And now this story goes back to the World War II. This was the phase where there was the Russian scientists who were doing a lot of research, and they were trying to figure out, because in those days the Air Force pilots, they used to fly in open cockpits, right? And they used to go to levels of 17,000 to 21,000 feet high up in the altitude where there was less oxygen. And they were wondering, how do we get these fighter pilots to acclimatize to those low levels of oxygen? And so they tried a couple of things. They would send them up for camps high up in the mountains. They would design these hypobaric chambers where they would get these pilots used to low levels of oxygen. And they also developed these special gaseous mixtures with lower levels of oxygen to slowly but surely get them used to low levels of oxygen, right? And what they noticed was, yes, the pilots were getting acclimatized, but the benefit also was that the body was responding almost miraculously to lower levels of oxygen. Because what was happening is the body would respond by increasing the levels of red blood cells and hemoglobin. So what was happening is these pilots, their capacity to take in or take in more oxygen was increasing compared to any other civilian. And so when they were brought back to regular sea level, now their body was optimized. They had an oxygen advantage, if that makes sense. So then what happened was this was being implemented in other areas, especially for elite performers, athletes. And all these people were getting that oxygen advantage because they were able to really create more energy, which is so useful in athletics, right? Now, for some reason or the other, this research did not reach the US because most of this was done in Russian or Ukrainian. And now the good part is, because of yoga and the type of breath work that we do, we hold our breath after 3 to 4 minutes of conscious breathing. And now when you hold your breath, what that is doing is you are, for a short period of time, reducing the level of oxygen in your bloodstream. And this is called brief intermittent hypoxia. The good thing is that you don't need this expensive equipment. You don't need to go up in the mountains. Just by holding your breath for a brief period of time, you are inducing the same effects as those pilots had, and you're giving yourself the oxygen advantage, putting yourself at an advantage over other people who are not holding their breath during the breath work. And the beauty is, when you put yourself in this positive stress response. Now, I'm not saying chronic stress. This is a positive stress for a short period of time. You are building new neural pathways. Your body is becoming more strong and more resilient. That is going to help you in tough situations when you're experiencing anxiety or when you're having stress. You are, in a way, making yourself stronger. So I hope that makes sense.
It does. And I think it's a great science lesson for people, as well as the analogy that we can do sort of what it's like training the body without using the external stimulus. And when you were talking about, I remembered we had this conversation on your show, right? The neural pathways that you're talking about and sort of training your body. Well, it's the same thing for exercise as well. And so I think that the oxygen, what you're doing to increase your body's ability to have energy, basically, is of use to anybody. And we always want to make our bodies more efficient, right? Because then the more efficient we are, the easier it is to get normal tasks done. So we have more energy available when we need something harder, not to mention all the benefits for sort of easing through whatever life challenges, so to speak, that we have both physically, mentally, and emotionally. So I want to talk about, though, the response on the body and how this work now, besides increasing energy, also affects our ability to heal and just our life experience in general.
Well, there's numerous things that are happening firstly, right? When you're holding your breath, or even when you're breathing consciously. And a lot of it there's still research is going on in terms of what exactly is happening inside the body. But one thing that a lot of focus is on right now is stem cell research. So stem cells, as your listeners might know, are unique cells because they're able to divide and replicate to transform into any other type of cell, whether it's hair cells, organ cells, bone cells, you name it. And many doctors they're doing research to take out the stem cells from the umbilical cord when the baby is born, so that those stem cells can be used later on in life for that individual when that person needs healing. The good part is that, the stem cells, just to add some more context into the stem cells are highest when the baby is in the mother's womb at the fetus stage. That's when the stem cell level is the highest. But if you look at the oxygen level in the fetus, it is the same as what you have at the top of Mount Everest. So the oxygen level is really low. When you are born, the oxygen level automatically goes up, which is why the stem cells, which don't like oxygen levels, high oxygen levels, they go and hide in what is called the niches of your body, or the niches, which is the bone marrow. And in fact, they are surrounded by a layer of red blood cells because they don't want oxygen. And the thing is, when you are systematically breathing consciously, deeply in that way for about 4 to 5 minutes, and then you hold your breath, inducing brief intermittent hypoxia, and in fact, a specific yogic condition called Nishesh Rechak Kumbhaka, which is when you hold your breath, but you hold your breath on the exhale. So you breathe in, breathe out fully, and then you hold your breath. You are allowing for the stem cells to come out of those niches because your oxygen level is lower and go to wherever the healing or the repair is needed. And so this is not just me telling you this, but science is also validating that this is happening. You're allowing for the proliferation of stem cells. And so it's not just healing, but if you do it on an ongoing basis, maybe daily or even every other day, you are creating conditions for longevity. In other words, you will live longer.
We talked about on your show how we in my Inner Circle membership use the 5-day fasting mimicking diet. And the point of that is also to generate new stem cell production. I didn't know you could do it through breath. So you better believe I'm going to be starting to do that now. It gives me another reason to do this. Okay. So now we've moved on to how we can increase longevity and health and healing through stem cell production through breath work. And what about stress response?
Yeah, we've spoken about that on your show as well. But back in the days when we were living in the grasslands or in the caves, when there was a tiger or a lion that appeared in front of us, our body or our nervous system would automatically go into fight or flight, because guess what? You can't think about logic at that point. You need to run away to protect yourself from that tiger or that predator. So that's when one part of the nervous system, which is the sympathetic nervous system, would get activated. But then your body would really depend also on that system getting switched off and the parasympathetic nervous system getting switched on, which was responsible for critical functions such as resting and digesting and cellular healing. But because of the environment, or because of the age that we live in, because of the availability of social media and emails, we find ourselves in a chronic state of stress because we're always thinking about that to-do list or that email from that boss, or even online cyberbullying that's happening a lot. And for us influencers, if we have an opinion, you always have people that are either against you or against your opinion, and that again keeps us in a state of fight or flight. So breath work, especially the technique that I mentioned earlier, where you're breathing in, but you're really extending your exhales, that activates the vagus nerve. And now the vagus nerve is the largest nerve in our body, starts from the brainstem, goes down your throat, down your chest, down all the way to your stomach. And that nerve gets stimulated. When that nerve gets stimulated, because it's connected to so many other organs in your body, it sends a harmonizing signal to relax, and it activates the parasympathetic nervous system. So just by doing this technique, extended exhalations for about 3 to 5 minutes, you are automatically feeling that relaxation. And in fact, I do these sessions on a weekly basis, which is called the yin breath work. We do it at 6:37 in the evening. And you won't believe it. People who haven't been able to sleep for years together, they do this technique and they're telling me that they've never slept better in their lives. They're sleeping like logs, which in this case is a good thing, but it works. And so on top of that, when you hum on the way out, any tone, when you're humming a note or something like that, along with the extended exhales, you're further amplifying the effect of switching on that rest and digest system. And stress is, I think, the biggest factor for illness and disease and these chronic conditions, right? So if you're able to switch off stress, switch on your rest and digest, that's actually good news for everyone who is listening to this podcast.
One of the things I didn't get to mention on your show when you interviewed me, we talked about digestion. And I was coming at it from more of sort of the just body focus side. We hadn't really gotten to the emotion piece. But normally what I do mention in digestion is how digestion is affected by emotions and stress, and how digestion represents our ability to digest life and to process life. And so I'm loving this technique of breath work to help with digestion, because this alone can help with digestion. So it might not be that someone actually has a sensitivity to a food. It could really be that you're just in fight or flight all the time, and your whole nervous system is out of whack when it comes to digestion, because you're not in a place that can optimize your food, because you're in that state of elevated stress. And so I love this. I kind of wish we would have talked about that on your show, because I definitely because I want people to understand that, because they'll blame it on the food all the time. They'll say, oh, I can't digest that, and that upsets my stomach, and I always have digestive issues. And while, again, chemical and food stuff is a big factor, the stress and emotion is equal. And I love that this is a technique people can start using no matter what you're eating, to help your body digest, which is why all of you, if you haven't noticed, when you go on vacation, you have a different relationship with food in your body, because you've detached. The stress level isn't there. And of course, the goal is not to go on vacation all the time or live on vacation. The goal is to understand how to manage and let your body heal itself into and get into that state where you can digest and rest and replenish. So, all right, let's talk about how to use it. I know we've talked very simply about the inhale and the exhale, nose, mouth, extended exhale, sound on the exhale, tone, but let's talk about a practice.
Sure. And so one more thing I wanted to add from what you said before, digestion, but breathing also helps you detoxify. So before, talking about the technique, I was hoping to just talk about breathing. When I was a kid, and when somebody told me to breathe deeply, what I would do is I would breathe in through my chest and tuck my stomach in. But actually, chest breathing does not support or facilitate deep relaxation and activating of the parasympathetic nervous system as much as belly breathing. So when you're doing a deep breath in, imagining that the air is going all the way down till your diaphragm and your belly, that has a way of really relaxing you. Because when you're doing these long diaphragmatic breaths, what you're also doing is you are flushing the thoracic lymph duct, which is the largest lymph duct. And that has the effect of draining all that lymph that is collected and pushing it into the bloodstream, thereby further allowing you to cleanse and detoxify your body. And then that leads to you feeling better again. So, it's all connected, not just extending your exhales, but also breathing in all the way down till your belly. And I could talk about why nose breathing as well. And then we can do a demo too.
Sure. Before you get on to why nose breathing, and I want to touch on what you just said about the diaphragm and about the chest breathing, because most people do think that the chest up and down is their breathing. But if most of you notice, when you go to sleep at night and you wake up in the morning, your chest isn't moving when you're breathing. When you're allowing yourself to just naturally breathe without thinking about it, it is your belly and your diaphragm. Your diaphragm expands out, not up. And when you pull up, you actually constrict it. You don't allow it. You can't take in as much air when the chest is being pulled up versus you're letting your rib cage expand out. In singing, how to, like, you work a lot on breathing. And maybe that's why, again, initially I had this sort of response to breath work, because I've done so much of it just for singing purposes, of learning how to breathe properly, where to take the breath from, muscularly allowing not only your belly to relax, but also your rib cage to expand without your chest pulling up. And again, this goes back to, I've done that in different ways, in that way that I just didn't see and understand how I mean, I can see it when I work with people individually or when I'm with people in person. I can see how they're not taking in a full breath, or their anxiety is keeping them short of taking in more oxygen, or one of the many behavioral things that keep us in this state of not accepting and taking in more life through calmer, grounded, deep belly breaths. And so I appreciate that, because I was like, oh my God, yeah, that's, and it's the first thing you can notice though, when you lay down, when you stop thinking about it, you will never see your chest move up and down in your body, because that's not how we take in air. So let's, we can move into the why nose breathing.
Yeah. So nasal breathing is such a huge topic these days, and there's a lot of research being done into why breathing from your nose. But based on what I've come across so far, we've been evolved to use our nose for respiration and our mouth for eating food for the most part. But one of the, I guess, challenges that a lot of people are facing these days is that we are finding many people breathing in and out from the mouth. Now, they did some research and they assessed skulls from 1,500 years back and skulls from, let's say, 40 to 50 years back. Right? And what they're noticing is, because of this pandemic of breathing from the mouth, this is affecting the jaws, it's affecting the teeth, and dentists would tell you this. And because of mouth breathing, it's affecting so many different aspects of our health as well. The reason why nose breathing is good is because when you're breathing in through the nose, multiple things are happening. One is because of the nose hairs, you are filtering out any debris, any pathogens, any bacteria that might be there. So that's sort of like a one line of defense. When you're breathing in, just because of the nature and the unique shape and the passage through your nose, you have the effect of warming up the air, so that when the air reaches your alveoli and your lungs, it does not get irritated. So it's going smoothly down into your bloodstream. The third thing, which a lot of people don't know, is when you're breathing in through your nose, you're creating what is called nasal nitric oxide. Now, the nasal nitric oxide is by nature, it has the effect of protecting you or sterilizing the air that's coming in. So it's another line of defense, right? But none of that happens when you're breathing in through the mouth. Another benefit of breathing in from the nose is that this nasal nitric oxide, it reduces the blood pressure in your lungs, thereby further supporting the transfusion of the oxygen into the bloodstream with ease. And as we've discussed earlier, the more the oxygen not only enters your bloodstream, but reaches that mitochondria, the more effective you are at, creating energy. For men, nitric oxide boosts sexual health. So that helps as well. So if you notice all these reasons why it's really better to breathe in from the nose as opposed to the mouth, because we've grown up to believe that oxygen is our savior, that oxygen is good, good, good. But the truth is, oxygen is good. It plays a role, but so does carbon dioxide. And if you breathe in too much, that tends to happen through our mouth. If you're taking too much oxygen and it enters the bloodstream, there's a danger of what is called oxidative damage. So just like when you place a piece of iron in the air for a long period of time, it rusts, right? And it gets damaged. In the same way, when you're breathing in too much of oxygen and it's not exactly reaching where it needs to, which is the mitochondria, there's a risk of organ damage and potentially other autoimmune disorders in the future. And nasal nitric oxide sort of prevents that, because you're not taking in that much amount of oxygen, but the effectiveness of the oxygen getting into your mitochondria is 16 times more when you're breathing in from your nose as opposed to your mouth. So isn't that interesting?
Yeah. And it also goes to really push people towards, I grew up as a mouth breather at night. Yeah. And I've been trying to sort of change that habit. I mean, part of it is some people have to breathe through their mouth because, let's say, they eat dairy and they don't know that they're congested because of the dairy. And so they're always congested, or they're eating something, there's an irritant in the food, or there's something in your air, like needing an air purifier, you have smoke, or you're next to a plant that produces smoke, and, or, you know, for the fires that are going on right now for people who have any sensitivities, and all of a sudden, like, without being able to breathe through your nose, and you're forced to breathe out of your mouth. The problem is that if that goes on too long, right, then we're not helping ourselves. And so learning how, and I know there are people who believe and want to teach people to, you know, tape your mouth and like do things to force your, I'm not really about that. But because I think I've trained myself now to be a better nose breather at night versus a mouth breather, and it's working. So I don't need to tape my mouth and feel like I don't like need to feel like I'm restricted that much, because I think that's dangerous. If you know, because then if for some reason you just stop breathing and all of a sudden you've taped your mouth shut, I don't know, that whole thing just feels really bad. I understand the purpose, but I think it's dangerous. So you can learn how to, of course, you do need to get rid of congestion first if you want to do this. So if you're someone who's always blowing your nose, it's time to look at what you're eating and your air quality. So that way, and what you're drinking and what anything else that you're taking that could be irritating you to have congestion, but getting rid of that in order to regulate oxygen in your blood and your energy levels and your health. So, so thank you for that explanation. That was perfect. Let's talk about a practice now, because I know everybody's hearing all the benefits and they're like, okay, I want to do this. So what's the recommended practice that I do on a daily or weekly basis? How can I join your class? Is it free? Do I have to pay for it? Are you doing anything? Do you have any CDs or videos you can show me how to do this?
Yeah. So in terms of a practice to switch off, you know, that chronic stress response and switch on the rest and digest, you know, nervous system, what I would recommend is trying out the 4x8 technique. And if somebody is driving right now or is in a place where they can't meditate, then I would suggest that they, you know, come back to where it's safe and where they can breathe without any disturbance before trying out this technique, because this is, you know, it's pretty powerful. But the idea behind this is firstly to ensure that when you're breathing in through the nose, breathing out through the mouth, right? So into the nose, out to the mouth. When you're breathing out, you would imagine that you're breathing out through a straw. So this is called straw breathing, right? And then ensuring that you're breathing all the way down till your belly. And the way that you know that is by placing your right hand on your chest, left hand on your stomach. And then if you take a deep breath in, let it out to the mouth. Notice, is your belly rising and inflating like a balloon? Because if it is, then you're doing the belly breathing properly. And not just your belly. So your belly will rise, but along with that, slowly but surely, your chest will also rise slightly along with your shoulders. It's a very organic, natural way of breathing all the way down till your belly. So in order to do this breathing technique, you'd have to breathe in for 4 counts, breathe out for 8 counts, right? So in, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4. In through the nose, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Remember, we're extending our exhales. In, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. In, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Once again, in, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8.
When I teach certain techniques in my classes, I have always found for me, and there's different versions of what you just did that I've heard, like there's like the 30-second breath, the 15 seconds in and the like you work your way up to 30 in and 30 out. Or maybe it might have even been another variation of holding, maybe 10 in, 10 hold, 10 out. And I know we talked about holding the breath. Is there another form too? Because my instinct at that rate of breathing is also to hold it. So in for 4, hold for 4, out for 8 is what I kind of wanted to naturally do. Because I find that every time I lead people through any kind of guided experience, when we hold, even just doing it one time already brings our nervous system down. And
Correct.
it's a distinct difference in your heartbeat, in your blood pressure, in your right, like the cadence of your breathing. Like you can already feel your body slowing down just by holding it. So would you do a 4-4-8, or like how would you guide anyone to do any kind of holding if that's something they want to try too?
Right. And so that can definitely be done. So what I do is we do a 4x8, and you can do it for 4 to 5 minutes, right? So you're doing in for 4, out for 8, or you can even do a 4x4, in 2, 3, 4, out 2, 3, 4, and in. So you do that for 4 minutes, and really you're taking in the oxygen, allowing it to reach, your bloodstream, and nourishing yourself in that sense. And then what you do is take a full breath in, let it all out, let out all the air, and then you hold. And then what you're doing is you're trying to extend your exhalations while you have, released all the air out. So you can go for 15 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, whatever you're comfortable. And this sort of builds up over time, right? So then after that, and in between, if you feel like you need to breathe, you can take a sip in, breathe out and hold, right? So you're basically trying to extend your exhalations. And then what you could do is you can do the other version of holding your breath, which is taking in all that air, taking it in and holding again. So again, you can go for about 30 seconds. And then once that's done, you release out all the air, if that makes sense. You're doing two types of holding your breath. One is holding the breath with all the air out, then holding the air with all the air in, and then releasing it. That's when you really feel that jolt of that surge of inspiration, energy, whatever you call it. Something happens inside our system, but then you're really relaxing, right? So we're going through these phases of deep breathing for about 4 to 5 minutes. Then we're doing the breath holds, and then we can do multiple rounds. We can do 2 rounds or even 3 rounds, depending on what you're comfortable with.
And 4 minutes, is there a scientific reason for 4 minutes, or can we extend it to 5 minutes, or can we do as little as 2 or 3 minutes?
That's a great question. And I think what you're trying to do when you're doing this breath is you're really infusing yourself, taking in as much oxygen as possible. And then when you hold your breath, you are ensuring that oxygen that has reached your bloodstream, all of that beautiful oxygen is going into your mitochondria. And I feel that 3 to 4 minutes or 3 to 5 minutes is sort of the optimum amount of time for you taking in oxygen. Obviously, you can experiment. There's no rule in this. You can go to 7 minutes, 8 minutes of, conscious breathing and then do a breath hold, or you can do for 2 minutes as well. That's what I found.
I do a practice several days a week with my partner, Doug. And one of the things we do is meditation for 5 minutes.
Right.
And I've mostly been doing Ho'oponopono. And and today I think I did a visualization, or I was sort of trying to focus on a sound.
Yeah.
But I think what I'd like to do is this breath practice, and it's 5 minutes. I didn't know if there was some scientific reason that it had to be 4, because, for some things in our body, there's a certain amount of time where things shift. And I didn't know if that had any other reason. 4 is good. It makes you remember 4, 4, and 4, 4 and 8. But so that's cool. So I think I'm gonna definitely try for 5. But those of you that, and I would also recommend those of you who are in my community, I think you can handle 5. Anyone who's done my 30-day manifestation challenge, you've done something similar in my chakra clearing. And if you've taken my strength and intuition course, you've done something similar with the holding. So I'm going to strongly recommend that you do 5 minutes. I know it might seem like a long time when you're doing it, but I think it feels like it's going to produce such great results that it's going to be like the best 5 minutes you spend all day long.
Absolutely. And I wanted to add, sometimes when people do breath work, they try to jerk their breathing. They try to force it, right? So, my advice or suggestion is never to force your breathing. Make it natural, because the experience has to be enjoyable. If you force and jerk your breathing in the first, session, you're probably not going to do it the second or third time, because you're always remembering that you didn't enjoy the experience. So the experience has to be enjoyed, and take it slowly, especially if you're a beginner, you're new to breath work. Really ensure that you're enjoying it. Don't push too much beyond your comfort zone when you're holding your breath, because like I said, if you don't enjoy it, if you're not having that good feeling, then you won't do it. And JJ, when people do these sessions, and especially if they do multiple sessions, after a while, they're noticing sensations, they're seeing colors, geometric patterns, connecting with beings. That's how I put it. But they're accessing something that is beyond our physical self, if that makes sense. They're accessing information and wisdom from beyond the veil and connecting with their intuition, their higher selves, which is beautiful because a lot of these people never imagined that they would have these sensations, that they would see these colors. But it happens because I think the breathwork practice with our intention does something for us.
No, I can see that. And I would encourage people, especially anyone, what's been coming to me as I'm listening to you is this is probably one of the best ways that someone can start to reprogram themselves who have anxiety or anxiety attacks or feel, again, that sort of nervous worry energy. I feel like this is such a great practice that it's free. You don't need therapy. You don't got to pay for it. Like, I don't know what could be better. It's just having the discipline to keep doing it. And to, yes, when you connect in that way, just like with other technologies, when you open up and reconnect, because I think that's what really the main thing here. I feel like reconnection. You were talking about transcending. I think here's our innate divinity of who we really are as energetic beings in this body. Yeah. And we're so cut off because of life and stress and things outside of ourselves and trying to, that we're reconnecting. And when you have anxiety, as I've discussed on my show, anxiety is not a condition. It's energy. It's unexpressed energy. It's emotion and things that are coming up that you're repressing, and the repression, the holding down, the holding in of this energy that wants a release is what creates a sensation of anxiety. And if we're using breath work to be in touch and reconnect, then you can probably have an emotional experience. You'll probably be able to get a little deeper into your body, into your solar plexus and into your lower jowl, so to speak, and be able to, access, like you said, your intuition, your higher self, the true essence of whatever's going on with you, and make processing it, releasing it, moving through it a lot easier because you're reconnecting. And so transcending, reconnecting, these are words that I think are really important to add to breath work, because in today's age, we need all of that. Everybody needs all of that all the time.
And also to add, a lot of times we find ourselves in a place where we're worried about or thinking about chronically something that happened in the past, whether it's if somebody's lost their job or experienced a breakup or divorce, or maybe, has had a really difficult health diagnosis. And so that could make us live in the past. And sometimes people are worried about something that might or might not happen in the future. Maybe that level of anxiety about a project outcome or about a business or even about a relationship. Will she or he say yes or no? And all of these things are making us live in the future or in the past. But the truth is, the only control that we have is in the present moment. And these forms of practices allow us to come in the present moment, but also access a certain level of unconditional love. And I think that's what it is being able to come to the present moment, having this felt understanding that you are not separate, you are part of this world, and people are you. When you look at somebody, they are an expression of you, and being able to radiate unconditional love in all directions. And unconditional love is something that's very fascinating because it's not love in a conditional sense. It's not saying, I'm going to love you back if you love me. It's saying, I'm going to love you even though you don't reciprocate that love, because shining love is who I am. And that's what I'll do.
Perfect. Where can people find more about what it is that you're offering? Obviously, My Seven Chakras is the podcast, and my7chakras.com is your website. Where else would you have people go to learn more or get involved?
Yeah. So firstly, if somebody wants to check out the podcast, just go to your favorite podcast app, search for My Seven is a word, My Seven Chakras, and you can listen to any of the episodes. Other than that, if you want to partake in our next breathwork session, which we do on Sunday mornings as well as Wednesday evenings. So right after this episode, I'm going to, do a yin breathwork session for folks. But you can either join our Facebook group, which is my7chakras.com/TRIBE, my7chakras.com/tribe. Join in the discussion and let's connect. Or you can grab your breathwork pass by going to my7chakras.com/breathwork pass. As simple as that, my7chakras.com/breathwork pass. And you can partake and we can connect live on Zoom, and you'll see what it is like.
Excellent. I'm sure that many people will, because they got a lot out of today. I got a lot out of today. I appreciate, AJ, you coming on the show and for reaching out to me and connecting us and having us do this exchange. It was wonderful. And thank you for being the person to teach me more about breath work and how we can utilize it and why we absolutely need to utilize it. And even myself, actually looking for another 5-minute practice I can do to replace the Ho'oponopono that I've been doing now for at least a year, maybe 2 years. I love it, but I was like, I need something new. What else can I be doing in this 5 minutes in terms of a mantra meditation or something? And I love this. So I'm excited to try it out right away and to commit to doing it myself. Would love to hear feedback from all of you. And again, thank you. All the links we mentioned will be in the show notes, so make sure to check that. And AJ, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, JJ. I really appreciate you having me on your show as well. And there's so many things that I can learn from you. So it was a nourishing and fun conversation, and I'm glad that you got something out of it.